Hi, my name is Neelam Singh. I am a registered dietitian, and today I will be presenting on oils and fats and their impact on heart health. So I hope to empower you with the information you need to make healthier choices and improve your heart health. So let's get started. So in today's session, we'll cover the importance of understanding dietary fats, including the different types of fats, such as saturated fat, trans fats, unsaturated fats, and their effects on health, as well as role of cholesterol like LDL, HDL, and triglycerides in overall health. So we will also discuss various types of oils, their health benefits and drawbacks, and provide some of the tips for reading nutrition labels to identify different types of fats. Okay, so let's start with fats. Generally, most of the time, fat got a bad rap for a lot of years. But fats are quite important in our body. They are essential. We need them. Some fat is found in the blood and other body cells, such as cell membrane, but the largest amount is stored in the fat cells as a source of available energy. They also help protect your organs and keep your body warm, help in absorption of some fat-soluble vitamins, and they also produce important hormones. And of course, fat helps make food taste good, and it can make us stay full for a longer period of time. So it is a nutrient that we need in our diet, but just not too much. We will need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of added fat each day, and also it's the type of fat you choose that will impact your heart health. So bottom line is we need fat for health, but we want to be aware of types of fat we are consuming as well as amount we are consuming. So you can see this table, or you may have seen this before with the target cholesterol numbers when you go to blood tests to check your cholesterol. So you are checking what we also called as lipid profile. Here in the left-hand column is the name of the blood test, and the green column is the desirable amount. So a good total cholesterol should be below 200 milligram per dl. And there are two types of cholesterol: HDL cholesterol, which is good, and LDL cholesterol, which is bad. So too much of the bad kind or not enough of the good kind increases the risk. So LDL is a bad cholesterol, and it should be below 130 milligram, and HDL should be above 50 milligram. And you will see at the end triglycerides, it's another fatty substance in the blood, and they should be less than 200 milligram per dl. So first we'll talk about briefly on cholesterol. Cholesterol, as it sounds, is a kind of fat, a waxy substance. It's not inherently bad. Your body needs it to build cells and make vitamins and other hormones. So cholesterol comes from two sources. Your liver makes all the cholesterol you need, and like 80% of the cholesterol is made by your liver. The remainder, approximately 20% of the cholesterol in your body, comes from foods from animals. So why dietary cholesterol matters? Because cholesterol circulates in the blood and can join with other substances to form thick, hard deposit on the inside of arteries. So as the amount of cholesterol in your blood increases, so does the risk to your health. And dietary cholesterol is shown to raise bad cholesterol like LDL cholesterol, which is a risk factor for heart disease. So it's important to have your cholesterol tested so you can know your levels. And high cholesterol is also one of the major controllable risk factor for heart disease. And its recommendation is to limit the amount of cholesterol less than 200 milligrams per day. So it is found mostly in different animal products, for example, meat, poultry, dairy products. And to reduce the intake of cholesterol from these foods, try to limit egg yolks to 2 to 4 times per week. Avoid organ meats like liver, gizzards. Include low-fat dairy to control your cholesterol intake. So another like cholesterol is LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol, as I said, it's considered the bad cholesterol because it contributes to fatty buildups, plaques in the walls of artery. This narrows the arteries, which can reduce blood flow and increase your chances for heart disease. So lower levels of LDL are better. And we can think of L standing for lousy cholesterol. Lower the number, the better it is. So things we can do to reduce LDL or bad cholesterol is to eat more fiber. Fiber soaks up that bad cholesterol and allows to be eliminated out of the bloodstream. Foods high in fiber includes vegetable, fruits, whole grains, unsalted nuts, seeds, and legumes such as beans and lentils. So choosing healthy fat daily can also help lower bad LDL cholesterol. We will be discussing all kind of fats in the oncoming slides, and limiting saturated fat and avoiding trans fats will also help. Reducing cholesterol intake from food can also be a wise decision. So HDL cholesterol, this is our good cholesterol. You can think of H standing for happy cholesterol, the healthy cholesterol. The higher the number, the better it is. So the higher the good cholesterol, the more it circulates through the blood and takes the bad cholesterol out of the bloodstream and back to the liver to be recycled, keeping arteries open and your blood flowing more freely, and hence higher levels of HDL are better. Things we can do to improve our good HDL cholesterol includes being active, increase your current activity, and aim to get up 5 days a week with activity. Maintain healthy weight or work towards a healthier weight. If you're currently overweight, even a few pounds will help. And quit smoking or work towards it and avoid trans fats. So triglycerides, another type of fat found in your blood. When you eat, your body converts any calories it doesn't need to use right away into triglycerides. So the triglycerides are stored in your fat cells. Later, hormones releases triglycerides for energy because energy between meals. If you regularly eat more calories than you burn, particularly from high carbohydrate foods, you may have high triglycerides. And you can see some of the same or similar recommendation to reduce triglyceride as well, which is like maintaining a healthy weight through a balanced diet and regular exercise. You can follow my plate recommendation for balanced nutrient-dense food where carbohydrate is only quarter of your plate and half of the plate filled with fruits and veggies high in fiber and another quarter with protein. And choosing whole grains for added fiber, which can help lower triglyceride, selecting food without added sugar to reduce your sugar intake, limiting portion sizes of desserts and snack food, which can be high in sugar and unhealthy fats, and drinking less alcohol, as excessive alcohol consumption can increase triglycerides level. And something like incorporating fatty fish into your diet 2 or more times per week to increase your intake of omega-3 fatty acids, which have shown to lower triglycerides, and being physically active for at least 30 minutes on most days of the week or work towards meeting this goal. Regular exercise can also help in improving triglycerides level and overall cardiovascular health. So let's start with the kinds of fats. So generally there are 3 major dietary fats in food we eat: saturated fat, trans fats, and unsaturated fat. Unsaturated fat has also monounsaturated fat we call as MUFA, and polyunsaturated fat we call as PUFA. So generally fatty acids are classified based on their double bonds. So if you will see, like I will briefly go over with this uh, picture, you can see the saturated fat. It's a simple chain of fatty acid that looks like this. But if this chain is interrupted by a double bond like this, it becomes unsaturated fat. So so this is the main difference between saturated fat and unsaturated fat, and I'll show you in oncoming slide how it affects fat content in the diet. So this is a saturated fat. So these are fats that are solid at room temperature because of their chemical structure. This is the chemical structure. They are made up of only single bonds, which allows the oil to stay solid. So this is the reason this is saturated fat. It does not have any interrupted bond or double bond. So this helps the oil to be solid at room temperature. So the main sources of saturated fat in typical American diet are foods from animal sources, such as visible fat on all meat, lard, skin from poultry, milk fat, example, cream, butter, cheese, other dairy products made from whole or like 2% milk, and some plant oils, mostly tropical oil like palm oil, palm kernel, or coconut oil. So unsaturated fat is also very high in commercially prepared snack, fried food, and fast food. So it's more solid fat. So saturated fat is more solid fat. And those are the ones that are gonna stuck in your arteries or stuck in your vein, and it's gonna be bad for the heart when we consume them in high amount. Studies shows they can raise LDL cholesterol, which is a bad cholesterol, and increase your risk in developing heart disease. We generally want to limit saturated fat down to less than 10% of your total calories. This is around 200 calories or less for a typical 2000 calorie diet per day, according to American Heart Association. Replacing saturated fat with healthier fat in the diets lowers cardiovascular disease risk as much as cholesterol-lowering statin drugs. So there are many ways we can cut back on saturated fat. Mostly when shopping for beef and veal, pick very lean cuts without much marbling of fat in the muscles or external fat, such as those labeled loin or round. Healthy examples include round steak, tenderloin, sirloin tips. So these are the leaner cuts. Leaner center cuts are also the best cuts of pork and lamb. When shopping for chicken or other poultry, choose breast or white meat without the skin. Cook extra lean ground meat and then drain off the fat. When making stews, soups, refrigerate the broth and skim off the fat with a spoon before reheating and serving. And to limit saturated fat from dairy products, you can thicken sauces with non-fat milk instead of whole or 2% milk. You can use a low-fat cheese, feta cheese in pasta dishes. Try to include fish regularly because of those omega-3 fatty acid benefit that can help in lowering the bad cholesterol. Include more nuts and seeds, and replace some of the meat with plant proteins such as soy, dried beans, legumes, nuts, seeds that can give more fiber also. This will not only reduce your intake of saturated fat, plant protein, but also can increase the intake of fiber, and fiber is known to reduce the cholesterol levels. So you can have like several options, like adding soy or pea protein crumbles to chili, or making soup with soybeans or lentils, split peas kind of. And when you do cook with fat, choose healthy liquid vegetable oils. You can switch coconut oil, butter in cooking to avocado, canola, or sunflower oil, or switch butter to peanut butter on your toast. Make salad dressing mostly with olive, walnut, or pecan oil. You can also reduce your portion size. If you currently have large portion of meat, work way slowly to bring that portion down closer to the size of deck of the card, which is approximately 3 ounces. So moving on to next type of fat, which is trans fats. So it's a chemical process that certain types of oil to go through. Trans fats are created when manufacturers add hydrogen to vegetable oil. This process is called hydrogenation. This process converts a liquid fat into stable semi-solid fat. If we will see, our liquid fat is like this, a single chain of fatty acid with interrupted bond. And if you will see the trans fats, what manufacturers have done, they added by the process of hydrogenation, the single bond is like a trans double bond, like it changed the position in the oil. So that makes it semi-solid. So it was the liquid vegetable oil is like this in this single chain of fatty acids, or with the interrupted bond. In the trans fat, what manufacturers do, they change the configuration, they make it in a cis form or in a slanting direction to make it semi-stable. This type of fat is bad for you because enzymes in the human body don't recognize this type of configuration, and they have difficult time trying to digest them. But why do some companies use trans fat? Because they are easy to use, inexpensive to produce, and it lasts long time. It also gives desirable taste and texture. Many restaurants and fast food outlets use trans fats to deep fry foods because oil with trans fat can be used many times in commercial fryers. So trans fats are naturally found in low amounts in meats and dairy. However, mostly found under food in baked goods, includes cakes, pies, crust, biscuits, frozen pizzas, cookies, fried foods like donuts, strict margarines, and spreads. So regularly consuming trans fat containing food has shown to increase LDL or bad cholesterol and decrease HDL or good cholesterol in the body. That's exactly the opposite of what we want to happen. And the FDA has placed an order for all food companies to remove the use of trans fats in their product with a compliance date of January 1, 2020. While trans fat should now be eliminated from all foods, you may still see companies who are non-compliant to this rule, or some of the foods that do not contain any kind of labeling. So the problem is because it's found mostly under the food, so how do you know if a product contains trans fat or not? So the primary dietary source for trans fat in processed food is partially hydrogenated oil. So the code word is partially hydrogenated oil. So one way you can identify if a food item has trans fat or not is to look at both nutrition facts label. So you can determine the amount of trans fat in particular packaged food by looking at the nutrition facts panel. However, product can be listed as 0 gram of trans fats. Very similar like this example. Product can be listed as 0 gram of trans fat if they contain 0 grams to less than 0.5 gram of trans fat, which means a product can listed 0 gram of trans fat if they contain less than 0.5 gram of trans fat per serving. But if you are eating 2 serving, like serving size for here is 1 pantry, which might have less than 0.5 gram of trans fat, but is in case if you are eating 2 pastries, it would be a 1 gram of trans fat, which means that you are consuming trans fats. Another way, like most of the time, it's very hard to figure it out, trans fats from nutrition facts label. So it's very important that you read the ingredient list. So you can spot trans fat by looking the ingredient referred to as partially hydrogenated oil. You can see that hydrogenated here, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, partially hydrogenated soybean cottonseed oil, less than 0.5 gram. So most of the time you won't find these listed as trans fat at all, but rather ingredients that contain trans fat, mainly partially hydrogenated oil and hydrogenated oil. So always look at the ingredient label for terms hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil. And even if label says 0 gram trans fats, the food can still contain trace amounts of it. So moving on to the good fat, unsaturated fat. So the most important thing how to recognize unsaturated fat is it's liquid at room temperature or comes from plants and fish. Great examples are vegetable oils such as olive oil, canola, sunflower, safflower, soybean, avocados, also in nuts, seeds, and fatty fish. So being a liquid, it's the same in the arteries and veins that's going to flow through them very easily. It's not going to stuck. It's not going to cause heart disease. So unsaturated fat, when replace saturated fat in the diet, really helps to decrease your LDL and total cholesterol and triglycerides while improving your HDL and good cholesterol. So you will see this is a saturated fat, a single line chain of fatty acid with one interrupted bond. So this is a single chain fatty acid. So this is an unsaturated fatty acid with interrupted double bond. So as per guidelines, I mean, unsaturated fat when replaced with saturated fat in the diet helps to decrease your LDL, total cholesterol, triglyceride, while improving HDL and good cholesterol, which means you should replace foods high in saturated fat with foods high in monosaturated or polyunsaturated food fats, which means eating foods made with liquid vegetable oil, but not tropical oils. It also means eating fish and nuts. You also might try to replace some of the meat you eat with beans and legumes. So these are the example of unsaturated fat. So you will see that there is like for good health, like majority of the fat that you eat should be monounsaturated, which is also called MUFA, or polyunsaturated, which is also called as MUFA. So these are the fat that are liquid at room temperature, which would be which would be like a different types of cooking oil, like olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. You can see the list of monounsaturated olive oil, canola, peanut oil. Other sources are avocados, peanut butter, and nuts and seeds. The difference between mono and polyunsaturated fat basically again boils down to their chemical structure, because both are unsaturated fat. So both types of fats has at least one double bond. It is the double bond that keeps the oil liquid at room temperature. Mono fats have one double bond, while poly can have two or more double bonds. So mono means once, which means have one double bond, one interrupted line. Poly means like many, so it could have like two or more double bonds. So both of these types of fat have shown to reduce total body cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. And as we see that monosaturated fat is present in most of the oil and other sources, something like avocado, peanut butter. Polyunsaturated fat present also in many oil like soybean, corn oil, sunflower oil. Other sources mostly like fish, some nuts, seeds, walnuts, sunflower seeds, tofu, or soybean. Polyunsaturated fat, or PUFA, has two more kinds of fat, which is again omega-3 and omega-6. You may have heard a lot about omega-3 and omega-6 fats. Again, it is like omega-3 has first double bond placed on the third carbon, or the omega-6 is like on the sixth carbon. It's not necessary to know. It's just showing the difference, how the oil changes with the double bonds. And why are the double bonds important? Because they bring huge advantage by allowing the molecule to be flexible and fight anti-radicals, as they help the molecule bend. But they come at the cost of making the molecule unstable, because it can spoil very easily. So you should try to replace foods high in saturated fat with foods high in monounsaturated or polyunsaturated fats. So we have a lot of evidence supports the positive health effects of omega-3 fatty acids. So they are great for heart health. They help to lower your triglyceride, blood pressure, lower inflammation. They also help to increase good cholesterol. So these omega-3 fats can be found from fatty fish such as salmon, mackerel, herring, lake trout, sardines, albacore, tuna. So generally, American Heart Association encourages to include fish twice a week to get a good dose of healthy omega-3. Fish is also a good source of protein, and unlike fatty meat products, it's not high in saturated fat. Fish is also a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, which is also good for heart. And as per research, it is shown that it can reduce your risk for heart disease. If you are, in case if you are vegetarian or you choose not to eat fish, there are other choices of omega-3 rich foods. They are found in ground flaxseed, flax oil, chia seed, hemp seed, or canola oil, and soybean. So if you don't eat any fish, American Heart Association encourages to choose some of these resources regularly. Try adding a couple of teaspoons of chia seeds or ground flax to smoothies, oatmeal, or on yogurt, or try adding healthy fat and fiber hemp seed for great healthy omega-3 dosage. So these are some of the, fishes. Those are higher in omega-3. So it's it's a box which says that 3 ounces of herring, mackerel, trout, salmon, and all these fishes contains good amount of EPA and DHA, which is omega-3 fatty acids, kind of. So another question always, what is good for cooking, butter or oil? So based on the effects of saturated, unsaturated, and trans fats on the body, it will be safe to say that cooking in oil is definitely better than cooking in butter. So the cooking oil should have higher amount of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, and with minimal no saturated fats and trans fats. Common vegetable oils that are high in polyunsaturated fats include olive oil, canola, peanut, sunflower, and soy. Avoid coconut oil or dripping and butter because these are very high in saturated fat. And having said that, there is no difference between monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fat in terms of calorific value. All fats and oils are high in calories. Hence, even oils classified as healthy should be used sparingly. So, so this is another way to look for the smoke point as well. So it is essential for us to pay attention to what temperature we are using these healthy oils to prevent them from burning, which generates unsaturated free radicals that those are not good for our heart health. So when you are frying, roasting, grilling, or barbecuing, the cooking temperature will be very high. So you need to choose oil that are stable at high temperature and have a high smoke point. So the smoke point is the temperature at which the oil starts to smoke, which is different for all oils. When an oil starts to smoke, the fat breakdown and harmful substances are produced. So try to choose canola or rapeseed, safflower, sunflower oil, or corn oil for cooking at high temperature. So most of the oil sold as vegetable oil is rapeseed oil, which is good for cooking at high temperature. Check the label to make sure. Oils with low smoke point are tasty, tasty in sauces and salad dressing. So note that olive oil, flax oil has low smoke point, which means it should not be used for frying. So whichever cooking method you choose, use a small amount of oil as they are still high in calorie. Another thing is repeat frying with deep fat fryer can also lead to harmful substance and trans fat forming over time. So it's best to avoid deep frying, and if you do, use the oil once and then throw it away. So these are some of the ways to get good fat. Improve your heart health by replacing saturated fat with unsaturated fat, which can help lower bad cholesterol, triglyceride levels, and provide essential nutrient. So try these 4 ways to add more good fat to your diet. Eat 8 ounces of non-fried fish per week, such as salmon, sardine, and tuna. Snack on unsalted nuts and seeds like almonds, hazelnuts, peanut, or pumpkin seed. Incorporate avocado in your diet. Use oil lower in saturated fat for cooking and dressing like olive or rapeseed or sesame oil. So incorporating some of these tips can make it easy and delicious to add more unsaturated fat to your diet and improve your heart health. And this is the slide just to look in what to look when you are reading a label on fat, like what kind of thing you should be look into while reading the label for heart health. So start with serving size per container, and All the information on the label about calories and nutrient is for one serving. If you eat more than one serving, you get more calories and nutrients. And also choose food with less than 5 grams of total fat per serving, which means if you are on 2000 kilocalorie diet, 50 gram to 75 gram per day. Choose food with less than 2 gram of serving of saturated fat, or limit saturated fat to less than 6 to 7% of your total calories daily by replacing them with unsaturated fat. So if you are on 2000 kilocalorie diet, it would be the saturated fat would be around 12 to 14 grams per day, and aim for 0 gram trans fats. So read the ingredient list on the label. If a food contains partially hydrogenated oil, then it has some trans fat. And it's also wise to have food which is low in sodium. You can also check or use percentage daily value. If it's 5% or less, it means low, or if it's 20% or more, which means it is high. So saturated fat here is 18%, so which is approximately 20%. So you may be knowing, I mean, you can understand that it's high in that particular nutrient or saturated fat. Look for dietary fiber. It's just 4%, which is less than 5%, which means it is low in that dietary fiber. So for heart health, we want low saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, and high and some nutrient high in fiber are like nutrients, and we like to have some of the nutrients, those are higher in fiber, like dietary fiber. So these are the key points. Unsaturated fats are found mostly in plant and fish products. It's liquid at room temperature or comes from plant and fish. That's a great example, our vegetable and olive oil. And being a liquid, it's the same in the arteries and vein, that's going to flow through them easily, and it's not going to stuck or cause heart disease. In general, good fat helps in lowering bad cholesterol and raise good cholesterol, great for their heart. Oil that contain monounsaturated fat are typically, as I said, MUFA, monounsaturated fat, or PUFA, polyunsaturated fat. They all are liquid at room temperature, but start to turn solid when chilled, but we shouldn't be worried on that. Saturated fat are mostly solid at room temperature, and it comes mostly from animal products, or it's high in dairy products and fast food, and it can increase your bad cholesterol, like LDL cholesterol. And trans fats are found under the food, like donuts, cakes, and it raises bad cholesterol and lowers good cholesterol. So this is what this is exactly the opposite. That's what we want to happen. So we have to be careful. So love the unsaturated fat, limit saturated fat, and lose trans fats. Also to know that fats are very high in energy, so they can lead to weight gain. So you need to keep an eye how much you eat in total. And also check the label on food to see how much fat and saturated fat they contain. Some labels are most of the time color coded, which can help to make a great selection or quick selection. So thank you for attending the session on fats and oil. I hope that you found the information informative and useful for making healthy dietary choices. Thank you.